Monitors across the control room snapped to the same black field at once. Mara Ellis slammed a palm onto her console and shouted, "We relive on Channel Sondru." Suspicion tightened her hands around the patch cable before she finished running the first telemetry sweep. The signal routing showed the feed replicating across 3 upstream nodes. Mara felt suspicion as a muscle under her ribs. It made her check logs she did not need to check and call Rise faster than usual. She moved through the monitoring bank without hesitating. The rooms smelled of coffee and ozone. A bank of small green LEDs blinked steady until one flicked to amber. Mara tapped the worn recorder at her hip and said, "Rays, you seeing this?" Every transmitter just switched to a black frame. Rays answered from behind a rack, voice low, "I see it." Tracking lines all over the feed. "Isolate the trunk." Mara began isolating trunks and tracing the route, while the rest of the room erupted into motion. The silhouette on the black field paced in a tight loop, a thin white outline like a negative Q-tut. The figure had no features at first, only a steady gait time to scanline flutter. Reports from remote sites pushed into the console. Households, public monitors, and emergency displays all showing the same pacing image. Mara leaned close to a faulty monitor and counted frames as if counting heartbeats. The announcer's chair creaked when he stood, smooth tie straightened with a practiced hand. He was given the on-air feed while Mara stayed in diagnostics. The announcer read aloud into the mic with a steady cadence. "This is an official advisory. A technical anomaly is affecting certain channels. Remain calm and stand by for instructions." Mara's fingers hovered over the reset command. The announcer's steady voice had the effect of buying time for technicians and of fixing attention on the feed. Mara watched telemetry climb as callers flooded the emergency line. "My television is showing a walking white thing," said one caller, voice trembling. "How long will it last?" Another asked. Mara logged each caller, wrote the time stamp, and patched their reports to the master feed. She kept repeating checklists out loud: trace, isolate, log. The repetition eased her breath for a moment and turned suspicion into procedural focus. She found the buried metadata layer while sweeping a flagged packet. The layer contained repeating vertical scan artifacts and a simple mapping table. Position coordinates for the silhouette S pixels, encoded timing stamps, and a small oscillation that aligned with transmitter master clocks. Mara read the mapping lines aloud. "It maps growth to hourly ticks, position, appendage vectors, scan offsets." When she said it, Rays stopped mid-solder and asked, "Growth? What do you mean by growth?" The next frame on the quarantined monitor showed an extra translucent limb cross the silhouette for one frame. Mara called across the room, "Frame 11, look at the right shoulder." It added a joint. Night engineer Rays crouched by her station, hands on knees. "Are you sure that's not an artifact?" he asked. Mara toggled through raw frames and froze the one with the limb. "No," she said. "It's persistent across decodes." The mapping layer expects another limb at the next hour mark. Rays moved to the transmitter racks and began a hard reset with Mara supervising. The team clustered, each person assigned a task in clipped lines. Rays, cut feed 4. Mara, patch loop 2. The station director barked orders into a headset, and the announcer adjusted copy to release a measured advisory prepared for unstable outputs. Mara's ticks on the recorder grew into a rhythm of commands. Isolate, cut cycle. The room's tension shifted from suspicion to active containment. When the racks cycled, one bank did not return to nominal. The silhouette surged in contrast on the remaining live monitors. Jointed limbs fanned outward across the picture and then converged toward the camera direction. The surge coincided with a spike on the power bus. Sparks jumped on a terminal strip and a technician grabbed his forearm, shouting, "Power spike!" He dropped the wrench and hissed through clenched teeth. Mara reacted without naming the feeling. She yanked the emergency breaker and hit the manual ground. A technician, Felix, barked, "Felix, status!" but only managed to spit a curse while his gloves smoked. The surge tripped secondary relays and knocked audio routing into a muddy loop. The announcer's live feed stuttered over a clipped hum, and then the silhouette S-form reoriented toward the studio camera on the main monitor. The view was precise. The white figure paused, turned its head less oval toward the glass, and the rightmost limb flexed in a motion that matched a tracked relay pulse. Mara recorded the event on the worn recorder as the announcer switched to a truncated advisory. "This is an emergency log," he said. "Do not follow the image. Do not illuminate moving shapes on your screen." The announcer's voice did not rise. It catalogued instructions in short sentences. Mara's breathing shortened. She tapped a command to quarantine the affected racks and rewrote monitoring to isolated loops. Reyes repeated her commands back in quick, clipped confirmation. Quarantine racks B through D. Patching loop 3 now, they rebuilt partial telemetry on a single isolated monitor in the diagnostics bay. That monitor displayed the silhouette motionless with a solitary red emblem blooming where a face might be. The emblem pulsed once, synchronizing to a low hum through the room's speakers. Mara placed a gloved hand to the monitor spazel and felt a vibration in the casing, a low electrical buzz that had not been there before the surge. The room's energy shifted toward a different tone, focused dread. Mara ran a quick hardware inventory and found 3 affected racks with abnormal clock drift and microscopic solder fractures near the high voltage traces. She documented each fracture as she found it, whispering, "Rack C, transformer hairline fracture at channel lead. Rack D, intermittent ground." Reyes read back the entries into his headset. "We cut them. But the signal left residue in the metadata and in the hardware, Mara. The anomaly isn't a file anymore. It's changing physical states." The announcer for a short on-air statement and then stayed in the control room to monitor. "This is institutional log, Athondrid. Remain on standby and monitor the frequency for further communications," he said into the microphone. Mara watched his mouth shape the words, and the red tally light blink above him. He was calm and procedural, voice steady, but his fingers tightened around the binder-labeled logs when he set it down. Outside the facility, distant checks reported clusters of households still tuned to the faint, pacing image. One remote technician called in from a relay site and said, "We can T-force it off." The set keeps returning to the loop even after a full reflash. Mara for a visual of that set and received a grainy transmission. A living room with a floor lamp, a child's blanket folded on a couch, and a television showing the same thin silhouette. The room made the phenomenon human, scaled in a way the control room monitors could not. As the hour ticked, the mapping table showed a slow, reliable increment. Each hourly mark predicted a new appendage, a small change in position, and a tighter focus on the camera's perspective. Mara felt the next emotion shift, from procedural focus to a raw, simple fear that made her hands jitter. She covered the jitter with action. More logging, more cross-checks, more calls to remote sites. Her voice remained flat when she spoke. "Rise, compile caller geolocations." Announcer, prepare repeating advisory copy for the overnight block. Reyes moved faster than before, fingers flipping switches while he barked. "Mara, I need a hard mapping of the metadata indices. If this is replicating through master clocks, we have to isolate reference nodes." Mara slid him a printout and watched him absorb the numbers with a clenched jaw. The two of them worked in staccato phrases and short sentences. "Reyes, read me frame offsets 60, 2, 90, 140, 3, lock offsets, patch loop 5. Now, the cadence of short lines kept the room from fraying. A caller on the public line said, "It blinked red, and then my lights went out for a second." The station director took the call himself and read it back to Mara. "Director. Lights across that neighborhood dropped for 3 seconds. Mara checked the power grid telemetry and saw a minor voltage sag correlated with the spike in the studio. She recorded the link in the incident log and said, "Log that under power anomaly. Cross, reference with caller geolocation 5, the presence of a physical electrical effect changed everything from abstract to immediate danger." Mara watched the quarantined monitor, where the silhouette now lingered with an emblem. She read the mapping table where an entry was marked. Reorientation toward primary camera projected to occur on the next cycle. She spoke aloud. If it turns toward camera again, we get another surge. If another surge hits the racks, we risk hardware destruction and potential harm to staff. Ray's looked up, voice sharp. Do we risk shutting down everything? Mara hesitated less than a breath before answering, no. The logs show that hard cuts increased the artifact's activity. We need containment, not elimination. They adjusted containment strategy to defensive isolation, keeping critical systems on manual local power while severing non-essential distribution paths. The announcer for precise language to broadcast. Mara wrote a brief directive on a sheet and handed it to him. He read it with clipped cadence. This is an institutional advisory. Avoid adjusting or illuminating your device. Continue to monitor official channels for updates. She watched his lips form each syllable and the way station lighting scored his jaw. With systems stabilized, most consoles returned to normal. Felix, the technician with the singed glove, rubbed his forearm and made a sound that was half laugh, half grunt. The team rotated through small task shifts and took quick sips of coffee from paper cups. Mara kept scanning the mapping layer. The data showed persistence. A slow crawl of static where the silhouette moved, and clusters of households whose sets would not decouple from the loop. Her emotions shifted again, from fear into a hard focus threaded with grim acceptance that they could not fully erase the broadcast residue. Just before the hour closed, the quarantined monitor flashed a single frame that no compression could hide. The silhouette's many limbs snapped toward the diagnostics bay monitors in a motion that matched a recorded relay pulse. The sound system bluntly reproduced a doubled metallic pop and a low hum that traveled through the floor. Everyone in the room froze physically. The announcer's hand hovered over the mic. Mara typed the exact frame number into the log and said, "Frame 792. Save raw to offline. Lock it behind a checksum." Ray's turned to her, whispering, "Mara, why would an image try to reach into our systems?" Mara did not answer with emotion. She answered with procedure. "It is not trying," she said. "The mapping shows it replicates through synchronization points. It uses the infrastructure. We are a host. Our actions feed its growth." The team issued a final procedural reminder to monitor the frequency and await further instructions. The announcer signed off the segment with the institutional cadence he'd used all night, and then leaned back, binder on his knee. Mara walked to the quarantined monitor and put both hands on the bezel. Her fingers felt the low hum again, and she felt her pulse in the pads of her thumbs. She tapped record on her personal recorder one last time and said into it, "Stand by. Do not illuminate the figure. Keep devices on low power and report any reappearance immediately, outside the control room." Feed checks continued to return clusters of active sets displaying the pacing figure. Mara watched the living room transmission from earlier one more time. The child's blanket, the floor lamp, the television screen, ordinary objects inhabited by an extraordinary signal. The announcer closed the remaining active advisory files and left the studio to sit in the control room under the glow of the console bank. Mara counted the names in the log and matched 3 critical relay sites to the mapping listing. She highlighted them and placed a physical red bookmark in the binder labeled logs. The hour ended with the control room lights low and a few consoles still glowing. The silhouette persisted on a single quarantined monitor, now motionless with its red emblem steady. Mara felt a residue of motion in her muscles that would not settle. She did not speak about feelings. She stepped to the door, tightened the strap on her headset, and said a single line to the room, "We lock this down and stand watch." "No more resets tonight unless directed." Ray's nodded and the announcer closed the binder with a single crisp snap. Mara left the monitoring bank to hand off watch to the next shift. As she passed the announcer, he tapped the log's binder and said, Thondra will remain on standby. Keep us posted, she answered. I will. I'll monitor the 3 relays and patch through any live calls. She walked out into a dim corridor, the hum of the building following her like a remembered sound. At the door she paused and glanced back at the observation window where the diagnostics bay still glowed. Behind the glass, the quarantined monitor showed a single steady red emblem. The chapter closes on a concrete action. The control room locks the quarantined monitor behind an isolated feed and posts a guard at the diagnostics bay entrance. Mara keys the physical lock and turns the knob. The door makes a solid mechanical click that echoes slightly in the corridor. She pulls the latch, steps away, and tells the guard, "Do not allow anyone to open this bay without authorization from us, Sandra and me." The guard says, "Understood, Mara." The door seals. Outside, the night continues, televisions across the nation still tuned, and the mapping table marks the next hour with a single unread entry. Emotion root. Suspicion. Emotion shifts. Suspicion to focused containment to fear to grim acceptance. A television in Mrs. Klein's living room flashed to life with channel Sondra's thin white silhouette. Field technician Ruiz slammed his palm on the cabinet and yanked the cokes from the wall. The silhouette paused with one limb pressed to the screen. Then a pale extension brushed the glass before the feed jerked away to the neighbor S-set. Suspicion pushed Mara Ellis forward faster than protocol. She ordered Ruiz to note the apartment number and record the exact time while she cued a telemetry sweep. Mara moved through the control room with the same fast, economical steps she used in emergencies. She had not yet finished briefing the night team when the first replication showed on a remote tester. A black field, a white human, shaped void pacing, one extra shadowed limb where none had been 5 minutes earlier. Suspicion had been the first reaction when monitors snapped to the same black field in the initial activation. Now suspicion hardened into urgency as feeds multiplied. She tapped her recorder and spoke into it, low and precise. Mara, Ruiz, note the living cluster block 5, units 2 through 7, Ruiz, block 5, noted. The silhouette it touched the glass. Mara's fingers moved over patch cables. The control room smelled of ozone and warm plastic. The institutional announcer's console flickered. The announcer was already patching a preface for a directive. Mara watched a row of monitors and matched timestamps. The core problem was concrete. The anomaly replicated across distributed transmitters and used signal paths to appear. That fact would shape every decision for the rest of the night. Engineer Graham stepped up to Mara's station and pointed at a feed showing a cramped living room. Graham's voice was taut. "Graham. It moved through a coke run minutes ago. Cut the line and it arcs back on another broadcaster, Mara. Cut offline transmitter C12. Route local to offline. Hold a hard patch if it jumps." Graham's hands worked on the racks. He spoke without taking his eyes off the consoles. "Graham. On it. But if it follows pathing that doesn't help." The team ran the containment checklist they had practiced and updated. Their actions were clipped. Reroute, isolate, log. The institutional announcer, Log Ed Alonzat, spoke into the intercom with a voice that preserved calm and forced compliance. Institutional announcer. Prepare advisory template. Stand by for public instruction. Mara wanted the public advisory ready but restrained. The last thing she needed was spontaneous local airtime. She thought of the producer who might cut protocol for ratings and discomforted images. She recalled the previous hour when monitors across the control room snapped to the same black field and she had shouted, "We relive on channels 100. That memory was concrete and direct in her mind. The exact sequence of lights, her bare palm on the patch cable, the recorder's red tally blinking. She used that memory to justify immediate containment efforts. An external feed alarmed. A late-night tenant in a city apartment block had called maintenance after every television in her hallway switched to channels 100. Mara authorized a field technician deploy. Ruiz reported from a stairwell landing. Mrs. Klein, the tenant, stood in her doorway with a hand over her mouth, eyes fixed on a neighbor's TV, where the silhouette paced in a tight loop. "Mrs. Klein, it touched the screen, it touched my neighbor's TV," Ruiz reported in clipped phrases. "Ruiz." One limb brushed the glass. I pulled the plug, it jumped. Mara's decision rhythm shifted from testing to triage. She instructed Ruiz to disconnect power to the affected set at the breaker, not the plug. She did not want the signal to find another path to the same room. That choice came from suspicion that whatever tracked the signal did not respect household boundaries. It tracked electrical pathways. Graham. Master transmitter vault is showing irregular phasing. We can manually isolate the master feed, but its physical access in the vault. Mara hesitated a single breath and then volunteered. "Mara. I'll go down. You hold the console." Her voice was flat but decisive. The emotional shift from suspicion to urgency had pushed her into action. She signed out tools, clipped an analog patch cable to her belt, and moved toward the transmitter bay. The institutional announcer issued a prepared emergency advisory to stand by, careful to withhold specifics while instructing stations to be ready. Institutional announcer. Station leads. Do not transmit unauthorized feeds. Prepare public directive. Mara reached the transmitter bay and found the room colder than the control floor. The vaults hummed with a mechanical regularity that steadied her hands. Engineer Graham joined her with a headlamp and a spool of cokes. When they began to sever the primary feed, the cokes across the rack asked with a blue-white snap of cold static. "Graham, cut here." Now Mara's shears found the cable. She severed the run with the practiced motion of someone used to cutting redundancies. The cable split and a shower of sparks blossomed on a nearby display. A monitor on the maintenance bench went white and then black. The silhouette reappeared on a distant remote camera feed with a movement they had not anticipated. "Mara, it shouldn't be able to appear there, Graham." "It isn't physical, it follows signal, not lines." The next shift of emotion arrived now, doubt tightening into fear. The technicians exchanged short sentences that revealed increasingly specific hazards. When Graham tried to bring a temporary shield up on his laptop screen rippled with scan lines and the silhouette reoriented toward the camera lens. The pacing accelerated when the cameras focused. "Graham, keep cameras unfocused. Do not zoom." "Mara, stop focusing. Pull back feeds on all optical inputs." They obeyed her and then paused because compliance did not stop the silhouette's adaptation. On an auxiliary monitor, the silhouette sprouted translucent, jointed limbs that fanned outward when the camera attempted to get a closer look. The limbs moved with a mechanical sequence, each joint articulating a fraction later than the previous, as though following a program. "Mara, it responds to attention. If we look, it adds structure." "Graham." Then we stop looking. They failed at that one time. A local producer in a nearby newsroom, Elena Park, ignored the advisory and took a live feed of channel soldiered on air, arguing with the floor director about information rights. The institutional announcer caught the breach on a control line. Institutional announcer. "Elena Park, terminate that feed." "Elena Park. We have the right to show this. People need to see it." "Mara." "Elena, cut it, now." Elena Park hesitated. The newsroom lights reflected off her glasses. She wanted to show viewers evidence. That decision changed the room's tempo. Several control monitors latched onto her live return, and the silhouette responded in a different way. When the cameras widened, the silhouette stopped pacing and faced the lens with an abrupt stillness. Then it moved to the edge of the frame and extended a limb that seemed to cross the monitor surface toward the newsroom. "Ruse. It's reaching out." A junior technician inhaled sharply and stepped toward the cabinet as if drawn. Mara's hand closed on his shoulder and held him back by physical force. The pull was in his weight and in the expression on his face, not a metaphor, a concrete physical tug of attention that made him step forward. "Mara, do not step forward, Davis. Hold the line, Davis." I can stop looking." That exchange became a rapid escalation of tension exactly when the team needed calm. The institutional announcer, took control of the intercom and issued a directive that was deliberately vague but instructive. Do not illuminate screens. Stand by for more instruction. The directive struck like a rule across the network, but the damage in the newsroom already existed. The containment attempt that followed turned into a fight against a pattern. Mara and Graham worked through the patch racks, rerouting one feed at a time and attempting to deprioritize affected input. Every time they isolated a transmitter or clipped a coax, another monitor across the distributed network would bloom white and show the silhouette. Sometimes in a camera that had been offline. Engineer Graham, it's replicating into caches. It's in archived feeds. Mara, scrub the archive feeds. Lock write access. She ordered the archive locked down. Technicians moved with measured urgency, fingers tapping, heads bent over terminals. An unexpected adaptation occurred. Whenever a camera lens approached, the silhouette reoriented and accelerated its pacing rhythm. When feeds pulled back, the silhouette slowed. The team deduced a rule. Attention produced increased complexity. Isolation forced regression. Mara's fear narrowed into a problem-solving focus. She gave commands by short sentences and reinforced them with gestures. The emotional shift from fear to resolve was visible in her physical control. She shortened sentences, set concrete tasks. Mara, Graham, take the vault panel. Ruiz, secure the stairwell. Lock the newsroom doors. Graham, on the vault. 2 minutes. Ruiz. Stairwell secured. Tenants accounted for. Outside in the apartment block. Mrs. Klein pressed her palm to a darkened set where only a red emergency icon glowed. For a moment she refused to leave. The pixelated emblem burned into her eyes. Ruiz physically led residents away from windows and reminded them to cut power at the breaker. That concrete action removed local screens from the field of view and stopped immediate exposure. Back in the vault, the climax approached. The beat marked as the chapter's climax arrived as a direct, visible confrontation. Mara climbed into the transmitter vault to sever the master feed while an engineer tried to hold the line. The vault smelled of hot metal and lubricant. Nearby monitors displayed a grid of feeds showing dozens of small screens, each with the silhouette pacing. One screen showed a technician staring until his fingers twitched as if to reach into the cabinet. Graham. Mara, the manual cut is live. If you do it, other catches might persist. Mara. We cut, then we isolate power and pull the archive drives offline. She moved into place. Her hand on the main switch felt steady. She cut the power. For a heartbeat the world went dead, white across every monitor, and then everything collapsed to jagged static. The vault's lights blinked. A technician on a remote feed yelped, and his figure slumped forward. His body was still at his desk when help reached him, but the log showed a drop in heart rate coinciding with the signal collapse. Graham. Someone down. We lost Jenkins on the west console. Mara's hands were shaking now, though her voice did not show it. She ran to the console and found Jenkins breathing but pale, eyes wide and fixed on a blank monitor. She checked his pulse and then signaled Ruiz to call medical. The scene was concrete. A man in a chair, shallow breath, a scribbled note from his hands on the clipboard. No abstract rumination, only the physical evidence of a person affected. The institutional announcer returned on a patched line. The voice was measured, carrying the same procedural calm as before, but with a new set of instructions. Institutional announcer. Directive active. Do not illuminate screens. Turn off sets at the breaker. Report any compelled behavior to local authorities. Mara typed the directive into the system and forced a hard push to the network. She included coordinates for the affected block and the specific transmitter identifiers. The announcer's voice again. Short, precise, institutional announcer. Stand by for updates. Await further instruction. The internal logs showed missing personnel tied to the times of signal surges. The team counted bodies and recovered those who collapsed at consoles. Jenkins and 2 others were weak but alive. 1 technician was unaccounted for. That missing technician's badge last polled at the transmitter vault. Then the feed went blank. The missing badge read on a scanner at 327 hours. The vault door had been latched from the inside. Mara? We locked the vault. Graham, who else had access? Graham, only us and senior techs. Jenkins had last physical contact at his console. They checked logs and camera catches. A twisted reveal emerged. Archived footage contained continuing pockets where the silhouette paced in small catches, repeating loops even after the master feed was cut. Some archived clips showed the silhouette paused and then accelerating when a cursor hovered over the file. The twist reframed their understanding. The anomaly had inserted itself into recorded media and responded to playback attention. Mara had to decide in minutes. Her decision moved the story from containment to controlled erasure. She authorized a selective wipe of archived caches with physical error, gapped overwrites, a slow, deliberate process that would remove regional copies. The method required personnel physically at archive racks. That choice meant sending people back into a compromised environment. Mara, Graham, Ruiz, I need you both on the archive racks. Lock gloves, code 2 protocol. No screens on, use audio log only. Graham. Understood, Ruiz. We move now. They moved in pairs, the team counting each step, their voices kept to the minimum required. The action sequences followed one another. Physical rerouting, data overwrites, manual dismounting of drives. Every time someone opened a server bay, a faint metallic tang filled the air, and on one console a red emblem bloomed on black. The emblem did not make a sound, but in the footage it seemed to trigger an involuntary head turn from the technician holding the drive. Mid-chapter, a mini cliffhanger occurred when a remote archived clip showed the silhouette pause, and then looked directly at a camera that had been offline for 2 years. The image matched a security camera shot from a small town diner. The timestamp belonged to a date when the feed should have been archived and dormant. Graham's voice clipped. Graham, Mara, that ass from the Henderson diner. That camera was decommissioned. Mara, who seeded that archive. The answer did not come. The discovery reframed the anomaly as something that could travel not only across live signal but into dormant, supposedly inert storage. The team moved faster. The final external event in the chapter's middle came when the newsroom reported a disturbance. Viewers in one neighborhood had turned televisions on despite the directive, and a local resident posted a live loop of the silhouette. Elena Park had returned the feed earlier despite orders. Mara ordered the feed blocked and called Elena directly. Mara. Elena, why did you air that? Elena Park. People needed to see. Mara. You broke protocol. Elena. That decision placed people at risk. Elena Park. We gave them facts. We could just. Their exchange grew into a brief argument with rapid back and forth lines. Mara, you withheld the risks. Elena Park. You withheld information. Mara. I withheld exposure to limit spread. Elena Park. You limited the public's right to know. Graham stepped in, cutting across with a practical demand. Graham. Enough. Elena, lock the newsroom feeds. Help Ruiz on archive input too. The argument stopped because the practical task required hands. The confrontation had revealed a motive and produced an operational change. Elena's choice had allowed the silhouette to adapt more quickly by exposing it to a live audience. That revelation counted as a twist. The anomaly improved when it had eyes on it. They finished the overwrites. Drives were removed, placed in Faraday cages, and physically transported to a secured facility. The missing technician remained missing. The vault's interior showed a smear on one rack and a faint handprint on a server casing. They logged it, photographed it, and closed the vault. The institutional announcer's voice filled the room again with a stabilizing instruction that framed the immediate next steps. Institutional announcer. All stations maintain current directive. Report any compelled behavior. Medical teams to support affected personnel. Mara sat for a moment with her hands pressed to the desk. The emotional shift from resolve to exhaustion arrived as concrete fatigue. Her fingers trembled, her throat felt dry, and she tapped a series of commands to generate an after-action log. She did not reflect on fate or destiny. She recorded actions, timestamps, and decisions. The team catalogued the steps that had worked and those that had failed. They noted the physical rule set they had observed. Attention increases complexity. Signal paths allowed movement. Archives retained pockets of activity. Live broadcast exposure increased the anomalous activity. Institutional announcer. We will issue a targeted public advisory. Instruct viewers. Do not illuminate any screens. Turn off sets at the breaker and report unusual feed activity to local authorities. Mara reviewed the advisory and adjusted language to limit panic while giving clear, actionable items. She included a requirement that stations avoid showing the silhouette or coming within camera focus of channel Odrid. Each clause was specific and tied to a concrete action. As systems rebooted, they found one archived clip that refused to overwrite. It played on a tiny loop inside an isolated backup. The clip showed the silhouette pacing, then splitting into multiple limbs that folded inward like a hand closing. At the clip's end, a single red emblem bloomed and the image cut to static. Graham watched the clip twice and then looked up at Mara. Graham. That emblem, it's the same one we saw on the set in the studio, Mara. Tape it. Document. Do not show it to anyone without protective protocol. They logged the emblem and isolated the file in a physically locked drawer. The final external beat of the chapter came when a studio archival monitor in a dark room displayed a single red emblem on black. An archival engineer who had been assigned to the drawer reported a tremor in his hands while cataloging the file. Mara him to leave the room and to log everything in audio only. The last paragraphs of the chapter tie to concrete events. Missing personnel counted, the vault secured, archives partially wiped, and a targeted advisory issued. Mara sent the directive live at 2:30, 2 a.m. Watched the network confirm receipt, and then stood at the control room window while technicians checked lines. The institutional announcer closed with a procedural, cryptic line that would be pushed across stations with a calm, low voice. Institutional announcer. Signal terminated for the present cycle. Stand by. Mara leaned against the console and made a decision she could document. The network would remain in guarded silence, archives would be audited physically, and any unsanctioned airing of channel Zozud would be met with immediate termination and legal action. She did not promise closure. She recorded the facts. Jenkins and 2 techs recovered at medical. 1 technician still unaccounted for. Multiple archived pockets flagged for removal. Elena Park reprimanded and assigned to supervised duties. She closed the log and sent a final order to field teams to black out the affected block until the following morning when physical inspections could continue. The chapter ends with a concrete situational beat. Mara received an incoming secure message on a separate line. The message was short, a single packet with a timestamp and a location. A decommissioned diner camera that had suddenly reappeared in an archive clip. Mara read the coordinates aloud, then stood and walked toward the vault once more. Mara. Graham. Ruiz. Gather the mobile kit. Henderson Diner now. Graham. Understood. The team moved. The control room lights remained low, consoles busy with logs and audio reports. The institutional announcer completed the final patched broadcast, and the feed cut to a looping static tone. The directive remained in place as the team prepared to leave the facility and to carry their protocol into the field. The chapter closes with that action, a mobilized team leaving the control room to visit the diner coordinates, concrete, planned, and unresolved only in what evidence they would now encounter.